In 1974, something strange happened on the set of Blazing Saddle that no one talks about. The actor who played the Waco Kid disappeared one day. What he did still bothers Hollywood John 4 years later. Wayne read the script and said 3 words that changed everything. The original title had a connection to Malcolm X that Warner Brothers hid, and the governor's name has a message that only French historians can understand. These aren't just movie facts. They were secrets they tried to hide for 50 years. Blazing Saddles started out as a crazy idea. It was originally called Tex-X, which was a direct nod to Malcolm X, the man who came up with the idea. Andrew Bergman was in his 20s and wanted to make a story about a black sheriff in an all-white western town. That idea alone was explosive. Naming the sheriff after Malcolm X wasn't just a joke, it was a statement. He wanted to rip apart the clean whitewashed myth of Hollywood cowboys, a black man in charge of the Old West that flipped the whole genre upside down. Even more shocking was the fact that a major studio looked at this script seriously. In the early 1970s, films didn't deal with race like that back then, especially not through comedy. The name Tex was dropped, but that fire stayed in the final version of Blazing Saddles. Before Mel Brooks showed up, the film almost went in a completely different direction. Alan Arkin was set to direct, and the sheriff James Earl Jones, this was long before he became the voice of Darth Vader. Jones had power and depth, but not a background in comedy. Still, he was a strong choice, but the project collapsed. Creative clashes, nervous executives, and the blunt force of the script scared everyone. It was too bold, too dangerous, so it sat on a shelf. Only when Mel Brooks came in did the story come back to life. He didn't water it down, he pushed it even further. Without that earlier failure, Blazing Saddles would not be what it is today. Brooks wasn't doing well when he took the job. The makers got him an Oscar, but the job didn't pay very well. His next movie, the movie 12 Chairs, didn't do well at the box office, and he was broke and about to have a baby with Anne Banks. He was ready to give up and go back to TV when he was offered Tex-X. He didn't take it because he believed in himself. He did it because he was desperate. Later, Brooks said that the movie saved his life by letting him buy a house, afford a nice dinner, and finally breathe again. Blazing Saddles spent his whole life writing the story, which was complete chaos. Brooks didn't work alone. He got 4 other writers to help him. Richard before Neil Steinberg and Alan Ewer. Everyone yelled, argued, and fought for their jokes to make it through the sessions, which went late into the night and were fueled by Chinese takeout and adrenaline. The first draft was 412 pages long, enough for almost 8 hours of film, but they cut it down to 275 pages, which is still way too long but full of crazy, rule-breaking humor. Before brought his sharp edge to the script, especially with the character. No one could even remember who wrote what about the fart scene around the campfire. This wasn't writing, it was war, and the result was something Hollywood had never seen before. From the start, Brooks set the tone with a sign that said, "Please do not write a polite script." Everything was shaped by that sign. He told his team to break all the rules. He thought, they probably won't make it anyway, so let's go crazy. And they did. They made fun of racism and Hollywood cliches, and they were brave enough to joke about things no one else would. Jewish writers wrote black jokes, and Jewish writers wrote Jewish jokes. The film's bold voice came from the fact that no one stuck to one lane. It didn't just make fun of Westerns. It tore them apart and made something new from the pieces. Richard, before, was meant to be the star. Brooks wanted him to play Sheriff Bart, but Warner Brothers turned him down because of his drug problems and recent jail time. Brock was so mad that he almost left, but Pryor, who was surprisingly cool, told him not to. "We'll find the right guy. Keep going," he told him. Pryor didn't go away. He joined the writing team and helped set the tone of the movie from behind the scenes. Ohio City little got the top part. Brooks later said that they were lucky with the little they had. But you can't help but think what Pryor's performance would have been like, especially since he and Gene Wilder became a famous comedy duo just 2 years later. Then came the biggest surprise of all. Mel Brooks wanted John Wayne to play the Waco Kid. Yes, that John Wayne, who was still one of the biggest stars in the world. Brooks gave Wayne the script, and Wayne read it overnight and said he laughed his ass off. But Wayne turned it down, saying it was too dirty for his image. He did say he'd be first in line to see it, though. Imagine the most serious and straightforward cowboy of all time playing a drunk jerk in a movie that makes fun of his genre. It almost happened after Wayne said no. Brooks became crazy about casting. Dan Daly wasn't a Western guy. He was famous for shows. But he was a great horseman. Brooks thought he'd be perfect and even found him in Hawaii, But Daly loved the script but turned it down because his eyes were failing and he said he couldn't ride safely anymore. Brooks was crushed. He kept looking for the perfect actor, but fate had other ideas. Then he hired Gig Young, who had won an Oscar and had the worn-out look Brooks wanted. But Young had a serious alcohol problem. On the first day of filming, during the jail cell scene, he started shaking, and Brooks thought he was acting until green bile came out of his mouth. He was rushed to the hospital. After the fact, Brooks said, "If you want an alcoholic, don't cast an alcoholic." Young didn't come back, and he later sued Warner Brothers. The movie had lost its Waco Kid again, which is when Gene Wilder stepped in. Brooks hadn't considered Wilder for the part of the Waco Kid because he thought Wilder was too young and fresh. He had offered Wilder the evil role before, but Wilder turned it down. Brooks called him crying. Wilder had just finished working with Brooks on The Producers. He got on a plane and flew straight to LA. When he tried on the costume, it fit like magic. That Monday he was already on set. His quiet charm and offbeat timing turned the Waco Kid into something unforgettable, and his chemistry with Clean Little became the soul of the film. Out of all the chaos, that last-minute casting saved everything when Mel Brooks first screened Blazing Saddles for the top brass at Warner Brothers. It was a disaster. The room was silent. Not one executive cracked a smile. The film was packed with fart jokes, a horse-punching scene, and the N-word used without hesitation instead of laughter. There was discomfort, then outrage. Leo Greenfield, the studio's head of domestic distribution, flat out said they should bury the film and take the financial hit. Others agreed. They didn't just dislike the movie, they wanted it gone. They handed Brooks a long list of cuts. Take out the campfire scene. Delete the violence, remove the slurs. Brooks listened politely, took the list, left the room, and then crumpled it into a ball and threw it away. He wasn't changing a thing. As soon as Brooks realized he only had one chance, he quickly set up a second screening for the workers, the secretaries, janitors, and mailroom guys. This time, the room exploded with laughter from the first joke. People were gasping for air and some even fell out of their chairs. It was pure chaos in the best way. One of the co-writers, Norman Steinberg, remembered the moment vividly. He said that people were literally rolling around on the floor, and Brooks said, "Fom, this is our film." That night, the studio executives saw something they couldn't ignore, and regular people loved it, which is what kept the movie from burying itself. Even after that wild response, the studio was still nervous. They didn't want to risk a nationwide release, so they played it safe. It would only open in 3 cities: New York City, of Los Angeles, and Chicago. That's it. No ads, no reviews, nothing. No buzz, just cold releases to see what happened. These cities were picked because they were more likely to get Brooks's comedies, especially the Jewish Catskill-style comedies that he was known for. The studio was hoping for small numbers, maybe enough to save face, but what they got were packed theaters full of screaming laughter and word of mouth that spread like wildfire. It didn't matter what critics said about it. Some loved it, others called it vulgar and offensive. Audiences kept coming. By the spring of 1974, the movie was showing in cities and small towns alike. Suburban theaters that the studio had expected to be empty were suddenly sold out. People didn't just watch Blazing Saddles. They quoted it, debated it, and argued over it. Lines wrapped around the block, and families and friends made nights of it. Even the worst reviews had to agree that the movie had broken through every barrier and done it with scenes that no one thought would ever make it past the censors. And then there was the money. The budget was only $2.66 million, but the final North American gross of $119.6 million made it the #1 movie of 1974. An estimated 63 million people saw it in theaters, which is more than any Lord of the Rings movie did decades later. Taking inflation into account, Blazing Saddles made nearly $600 million. It wasn't just a success. It was a phenomenon. Brooks had gone with his gut, ignored the executives, and made the movie he wanted to make, and it worked. The movie didn't just make it through, it changed what a comedy could be. Even the smallest details in Blazing Saddles had a lot of meaning behind them. For example, the governor's name is William J. Liedemann. It sounds silly, but it's actually a reference to a real French performer born in 1857 named Joseph Puel. Pujo was a global star known as El Toman, which literally means the fart maniac. That wasn't just a stage name, it was his act. He could breathe air or even water into his rectum and let it out whenever he wanted. He played songs, blew out candles, did impressions, and he could even smoke a cigarette using only his backside.